Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Computex 2024 for what is going to be a very special video, because this is going to be the best bits of the show. I've been here for a couple of days. Some of the tech here is incredible. And I want to start off here actually at the MSI booth, because we've got a brand new graphics card. I would love to tell you that this is the RTX 5090, loads more performance, but no, sadly not just yet. Just keep waiting on that one. Hopefully it's only a few months away. Instead, we actually have the brand new Supreme Fusion. And this is a graphics card that has an all-in-one liquid cooler inside it, but you'll probably notice there's no radiator that you have to put somewhere else, because it is actually in the GPU itself. Now, obviously this makes it absolutely massive. This is a quad slot card. We've probably seen this before, but not for a very, very long time. And I've certainly not seen anything that has two 120mm radiators inside. It's got the smallest cabling and the smallest tubing possible to make this work. It's actually surprisingly compact for what is obviously still a huge graphics card. But if you want something that's going to have pretty epic performance, but you don't want to resort for like a custom liquid cooled loop where you've got to plumb it in yourself, then this is going to be a pretty compact way to do it, despite, again, the fact that it is 4 slots. I have a feeling that this is going to be very expensive though, so if you want something that's similar but perhaps not quite as expensive, then if we have a look at this, it's actually one of their expert cards, and you might be thinking that we've seen this before, but this actually shares close resemblance to the air-cooled version, but they're now doing also an all-in-one liquid-cooled version. It's slimmer, and the main reason for this is because we now only have a 120mm rad on this, so the cooling's not going to be quite as good, but in theory this should still be better than most graphics cards. And as we know, most graphics cards of this generation run really quiet, really cool anyway, so it's not necessarily going to be like a game changer, but it's really cool, quite literally, to see just how much stuff MSI can pack into a really small GPU. But believe it or not, those are not actually the only new graphics cards that we have here at Computex, because over at the Palit booth, we've got some more concepts as well, and I really like this one. This is the 4080 Super Master, which I really don't like the name of that because Gigabyte Aorus also have a Master, which I think is a little bit confusing, but they are concepts, so the names may well change. But as you can see, this is kind of loosely based off of the Founders Edition. This one has actually been signed by Jensen himself, so if I try and pick that up, they'll probably get very upset. But it's an absolutely jaw-droppingly good-looking graphics card. It's very classy, and if they can actually produce this and then produce enough, I think they've got a big hit on their hands, because MSI saw this with their expert version of the card. As long as you can actually make enough of these, Nvidia don't make enough Founders Edition, so that alone means that people want to go for something that looks like the Founders Edition but isn't. But they do also have some more RGB variants on show, which is interesting. My favorite is this one. This is the Quartz version of their Beyond Limit series, and the reason I like this one is because you can actually see all of the RGB, and it's almost like cyberpunk in the text. When you have it in like a normal orientation, it doesn't rely on having like a vertical GPU to sort of show it off. They've got a more understated version as well. As I say, all of these are concepts, so let us know down in the comment section below what it is that you think about them. As you can clearly see, they're going for this infinite mirror effect, and I think it works quite nicely, if it is a little bit over the top, I think, for some people. Speaking of over the top though, it doesn't get more over the top than the GameRock. They've been making this for a few generations now, and you might be forgiven for not noticing much of a difference, but you'd be wrong, because this is actually one of those hybrid graphics cards. So ASUS did this a few years ago with their Poseidon. This one, as you can see, is actually hooked into a water-cooled loop, so it works on air or works on water. I guess technically it does work on both, but obviously you wouldn't need it to. And it's a great way for someone that wants to buy a graphics card now, but then maybe do a water-cooled loop later. But there is also one other card, and technically two, I suppose, because there's one with a massive screen on it and then one without. This is actually going to be a full liquid-cooled card, but this doesn't need to be plumbed into a system. You have a radiator on this. Palit are actually working with Link Plus on this, and it's got this quick connect here, so you can literally just sort of pick this up, slot this in, and it's not going to leak. So if you need to like quickly disconnect the radiator or something, you can do that. It's going to make it a lot easier to actually install, and it's for those that want the high-end performance and potentially the silence of a more expensive hybrid approach, if you like, with the water cooling, but you don't want to go for like a custom loop and have to do it all yourself. Moving away from graphics cards though, something very, very odd, and perhaps the strangest thing I've actually seen at Computex is here at the ASRock booth. And it's not the new monitors that they'll be coming out with shortly. QD OLED, the 240Hz that we've seen from other vendors. LG Display, they've got that one as well, which is going to be interesting. But it's actually on the motherboard side of things. So we've done a full video about all of the new CPUs, the Ryzen stuff, and all the new boards from Intel and AMD. You can find that video in the top right corner of your screen. But there was one detail that we missed, and I've just told cameraman Gareth about this, and he is also very confused. I read an article on this, so I've come back for a double take. But then have a very close look at the I/O. You've still got Ethernet and display and audio, but then everything else is USB Type-C. So no USB-A's on this at all, other than the ones that you have obviously on the headers for the front panel, which is very odd because I don't know about you, I've got like 8 or 10 USB-A's plugged into my computer. So are you going to do like a custom water-cooled build and then not use USB-A? Because ASRock seem to think so. From something a little bit peculiar to something a whole lot more mainstream, we also have the new ROG Ally. This is the ROG Ally X, and I had a little bit of demo time with this a few days ago actually, and it's a lot more comfortable than the old version. But the headline feature with this really is that we now have double the battery life, and the weight is only increased by around about like 60-70 grams or so. And in the hand, I would actually say it's more comfortable overall to use despite the extra weight. Obviously, if you're going to be using this for a longer period of time, then this may well change as it's a little bit heavier, can get more fatiguing. But we also have more RAM, and the RAM is faster, so if you do want to be playing more intense games that need more VRAM, obviously this is going to come in handy. And they've completely like redesigned the internals as well, so it should run a little bit cooler. They say the display will actually run up to 6 degrees cooler, I believe it was. So obviously if you're using the touchscreen, this is more comfortable. And the SSD inside is actually a full 2280 slot rather than the smaller one that we had before. So if you do want to take this open and upgrade it, that is going to be a little bit easier as well. But it's not going to fundamentally change what the Ally is, because the chip is actually still the same. It's the Z1 Extreme. But if you are after an Ally and you don't have one already, or you love it so much and you want every upgrade, this is certainly going to be of interest. As you'd expect though, ASUS ROG do have loads of stuff on display, and some of it's very, very weird. You just wait till we show you the hammer, then that'll make sense in just a second. But we do also have some concepts here. I'll be honest, I don't really see the point, but they've obviously got their BTF sort of form factor, where essentially you can have the graphics card plugged into a motherboard and all of the connections are reversed. So you don't actually need to plug anything into the top of the graphics card to deliver the power that it needs. Literally just slots it in. And these are some concepts where the case can actually, or the graphics card can actually become part of the case. And it looks pretty cool, right? You've got a few different form factors, a few different orientations. And I guess this is going to make a little bit more sense maybe in something like this, where you can still put mesh panels and things on it. But if your graphics card is quite literally sticking out the end, obviously that's not practical. But I understand this is a concept. Let me know what you think of this. But look at this. This is what I was talking to you about. This is a UPS, and that's not a delivery service. This, of course, is essentially a battery backup. If your system or like any of your devices go out, you obviously plug your power in, and then you can actually keep running your gaming PC for up to an hour with an RTX 4080 base system. But look, it comes with this little handle, look, so I can pick this up.
I've broken it.
I'm not sure if you actually get it. It does say Mjolnir on it, on Republic of Gamers, so I'm fairly sure that you do. So if you want it to look pretty on a desk, you can do that. I'm not sure if this is crazy or perhaps a little bit cool. ROG are also showing off some new peripherals here. We've got a brand new keyboard, headset, but the thing for me that really stands out is actually this mouse, because this is made partly out of carbon fiber, like a carbon fiber composite, and it weighs under 50 grams without having to resort to any holes. And we did actually film a bit before where I handed this to cameraman Gareth and said, look how cool this is, it's really lightweight, but I don't think he's interested in gaming mice, and he went,
yeah, it's a bit light, I suppose.
so there you go, there's your review. It's a bit light, I suppose. And as a massive monitor nerd, something else that I've really been keen to see is this, is the brand new Glossy OLED from ASUS. And we've seen Glossy OLED before, obviously QD OLED, they go for glossier panels. But the difference with this one is it is actually the first one from LG Display to be an OLED that is actually glossy. And I think Doe are actually doing a monitor with like a similar panel to this. But the difference with that is that they've actually put a coating on top of the matte, whereas this is actually straight from the factory. It's a different coating in the first place. So this is a 27-inch, 240 Hz OLED, now with the glossy OLED panel. And it's obviously not going to be to everyone's taste. They've got a matte panel monitor to the left-hand side that we'll talk about in just a second, and it still looks absolutely fantastic. And if you are getting any like harsh reflections, obviously bright light from a window or something, then arguably that is going to be more appropriate. But I think there's no denying that having something with more pop, more contrast, does just help the panel to naturally look that little much better. But we do also have this. We saw this, I believe, first at CES. This is a 27-inch monitor, but it's 480 Hz when it comes to the OLED refresh rate, which is amazing. So to actually have native 1440p on 27-inch, surely this is way more appropriate for esports. This is definitely what I would go for if I wanted like the highest refresh rate possible, highest clarity, lowest input lag, although we have to test that, of course. So this is definitely one that I'm extremely excited to get in. From gaming monitors now to gaming laptops, and my star of the show is actually this. It is the new TUF Gaming A14. It uses the brand new AMD chips inside this, but it's a 14-inch gaming laptop, and you don't actually get too many of these. We saw one earlier in the year from HP. It was the Omen Transcend 14, but the difference with this one is that you can actually do 100 watts of graphics power, which isn't something that's very easy to do in a chassis like this, and I'm hoping that it doesn't actually make too much noise whilst doing it. But this is also one of the big AI laptops. Everyone's talking about it now. AMD, Intel, even Qualcomm are wanting to produce these notebook chips that have this thing that we call an MPU GPU that is actually going to give you better performance in AI accelerated applications. And now with the new version of Windows, you're going to get Copilot Plus. So there are actually AI features baked into Windows, things like, oh, is it called Rewind? Reverse? Essentially what it does is to actually remember what you've been using your PC for over the last few weeks, maybe even months. It depends how much you allocate in RAM. And then you can quite literally scroll through a timeline, see a window that you had open, and then say, yes, I want to go back to that. And then it like reopens everything you had at that time, which is pretty insane. I do think this is pretty creepy. And for that reason, there are security features. So you can actually either turn this off entirely, or you can say, I don't want it to work in this app. I don't want it to work in this particular website. No judgment there, which is great. I don't know if it's on by default though, but again, definitely something I want to get in and test. And I know, the channel is PC-centric, but it should probably be called PC gaming-centric, right? Doesn't really roll off the tongue, I'm afraid. But I do want to talk about something non-gaming just for a little bit, because something that is very, very interesting this year is that Qualcomm are properly getting into the Windows laptop game, and they're sort of going after the MacBook style of having amazing battery life, but still amazing performance. And the way that they're doing this is by using ARM rather than x86. And this means that you should get better battery life as the chips are way more efficient. And I think as well, for me, the main thing I'm really after is standby time. I actually use a MacBook personally for emails and things, and this is obviously what this is essentially trying to replace. And it's so frustrating when you get a laptop at the start of the day and maybe it has like 80%, and then by the time you use it in the evening, even just like in standby, it's lost like 5-10% of battery. So if it can actually solve that problem as well as last all day with much longer battery life, I think that's going to be awesome. It is something I do want us to test. And of course, you can't mention a laptop these days without talking up AI. And the question really goes out to you on this one, because I want to know how much you actually care about AI on your laptop, because it seems as if every company here is shouting it and adding their label to everything. And I can't help but personally think, I know it's cool and I know it's going to be useful, but it's not going to be the reason that I upgrade my PC at the moment, but they seem to think it is. So it's a fight for who has the most tops, but was the most amount of tops actually going to make any difference to you? Let me know down in the comment section below. Now everybody, our next step aboard the bus to fun comes actually to the Cooler Master booth, and I want to talk a little bit more broadly here about like PC cases in general, because companies are having such a tough time to stand out and differentiate themselves, because you're making a box. How do you make a box interesting? Well, Cooler Master literally call their cases like Master Box and stuff, so I don't know, maybe they know a thing or two about boxes. This, I think, is like the epitome of the problem that we're talking about, because they're aiming for under $100. This is still a concept, and it's like, well, other than putting glass on the top and the side, or the front and the side I should say, how do you make it stand out? And the way that they've gone about this is by having this button that hopefully you'll eventually be able to customize with like any text that has these like RGB LEDs. I guess that like is cool and makes it stand out. But you see the problem we're having? Like, this looks very much like the Phanteks XT View, which looks like loads of other cases. How do you stand out, especially at a budget? Well, what Cooler Master are doing at the higher end, I think, is actually a little bit more interesting. This is called the Encore 600 Prestige. Again, still a concept, but Cooler Master concepts, I think generally they tend to come out, especially when they look a little bit like this. I really like the gold color. It's not something I've actually seen too much before. You put one of those like more coppery Founders editions in, fantastic, but if like the next 50 series go for like all black or something, then okay, it's not going to work quite so well. But the thing here is all about the glass. So you actually get two glass panels inside the box. Both are curved, which obviously makes this a little bit more expensive. They're aiming for about $210 with this, but I'm in two minds about it, because it's different, but is it different for like different sake? You do also get two mesh panels, so you can see the variant here has one of these mesh panels, and you can actually invert it as well, just like you can with Be Quiet cases. If you want to have it on the left of your desk, you can still do that, but obviously your case is then upside down. Airflow on this, I think it actually should be better than you might think, because you can obviously put the fans down the bottom, but I would like more sort of depth or more height really, so that it can actually suck up more air. I guess that's the new trend now, like curved panels regardless of whether it's glass or mesh. Is this something that tickles your fancy, or do you think this is just another attempt to get you to buy a new case? I did want to resume our case chat though down at Hyte, but I found something even better. We have what I would like to call a broken man.
Yeah, my voice is gone. It's this Computex though, right? What
happened to you?
I'm going to say a lot of hard work and definitely nothing about drinking.
Is that appropriate to put in the video? Anyway, a little bit of behind the scenes for you there. We're at Hyte, and I did want to show off some of the new cases they've got. got. So the Y70, obviously incredibly popular, and there's a couple of different revisions. The main one is actually to the touch, really. So you may recall we did a video on this last year or so. You can find that in the top right corner of your screen. Really like that, but they've made a few changes, and the main one actually really is to the display. It was a 4K display. It's gone down to 1440p, but they've told me that due to the sub-pixel layout, it should actually appear slightly sharper. Not 100% convinced, if I'm honest with you, but the main thing is that the availability on this is now going to be a lot better, because essentially they can get hold of this. So if you actually want to buy one, you can, rather than looking up PC-centric videos where we build on them. As you can see, we've got a few different colors as well. They're calling these the Milkies if you want one of the Y70s. So we've now got like this pink color, we've got the blue color, and there's like a lilac color over there as well. But they do also have some extra RGB bits and like fans and things that I want to show you. These are still like a work in progress. They told me their sole mission is to essentially have something where you don't see any hot spotting whatsoever. All the competitors, like, all have hot spots and things. The irony is that they're not quite done, so these do still have a little bit of hot spotting, but you can add some strips to your system. You've got this little controller. They've actually got some new fans as well, and they're sort of doing what NZXT are doing, where they're now building them into a single block. It makes them a little bit more attractive, easier to install, but they're still sort of focusing down the thick route of going for thicker radiators and thicker fans as well. And whereas the current all-in-one that they're actually offering is a 240, they're also unveiling the 360 version. This is the Q80 Trio. Still comes, as you can see, with that lovely display on the front. It's got loads of RGB that actually projects onto your system as well. But now you've got that super thick rad, but in 360 flavor. I think that was one of the complaints with the original version, was that the performance was decent, but I mean, you could get a 360 or you could like push-pull. Whereas if you had the space for a 360, people would want a 360, and you can make that thicker as well, which is exactly what they're doing here down at Hyte. But whilst Hyte are definitely working on refining things, down here at the Lian Lee booth, things are definitely a little bit different. So this is actually from SSUPD, and this is called the Xhuttle. This is their new case that they're going to be launching a little bit later in the year. I'll start by saying that this is still like a prototype. I think it's a later prototype, but there's definitely a few things that definitely need to change slightly, just tolerances and things. But this is one of those cases that you can actually sort of reverse, if you like, or change the orientation of. So we've got the two different layouts here. You can have like the graphics card at the top, or you can have it going down the side. And this alone, I think, makes it stand out. It definitely looks a little bit more different. But something that I can't quite wrap my head around is the fact that when you have it like this, the motherboard I/O is either going to be here, which means you can access it at the top. You can route everything through around the back, they say. But then it's always quite difficult to work out where the back actually is, because that looks like the back, but it's the front, but then the front can be the back. Or if you have it in this orientation, this is something I've never seen before. This is very strange. I'll get you to come around here, Gareth, because otherwise I don't really think you're going to be able to see this. Look. This is the front of the chassis, power button, I/O, told you it was a prototype. You've actually got all of your motherboard connections here, which on one hand is genius, because obviously you can access everything that you want really easily, but then you kind of remember, oh yeah, what about all the stuff that I don't want to be able to access, things like the Ethernet cable, like all of the stuff that you plug into your motherboard that you might have to be like trading cables all the way around your desk and stuff, they're going to have to go underneath, and then obviously that gives you the problem that if your cable's not that long, you're going to need to get longer cables. But you've got the options, and as I said before, cases are pretty, like, I don't want to say boring, but they're a bit stale at the moment. They're all fighting over ways to do things that are a little bit different. So it is nice to see SSUPD trying something different. The thing though that everyone is talking about down here at the Lian Lee booth are their new fans. So these are very similar to what we've seen before. These are the SLV3s, but now you actually control it all with a wireless receiver, which is another one of those things where I think on one hand is genius. I don't see why anyone hasn't done it before, because you can sync all of your fans together wirelessly. You don't have to plug a load of cables in them. You'd like daisy chain them together, but then you still need to plug them into power, obviously, because you need to provide power for the RGB and the fan speed, which means you still need to plug every fan block in anyway. So I think the jury's a little bit out for me as to how useful this is actually going to be. If we come around the side, it's very busy here. We'll see if that works. Yes, okay, I think we can actually do it. If we come around the sides, you can actually see the effect is that you get way cleaner cable management, because whilst you don't necessarily have loads fewer cables than if you were using like the old SLV2 or something like that, they're a lot thinner. So you don't have all of this bulk, and you don't have all of these like big like hubs and things that you need to plug and connect together. So I can see the appeal, but actually wrapping my head around how much easier it's going to be remains to be seen. The good news though, if you weren't already impressed with that, is the fact that it's actually not going to cost any more, or shouldn't cost any more, because you then don't have as much stuff needed, like a large controller and stuff. Something a little bit different. Innovation is always good, and as soon as these are available for review, we will be getting them in. As you would expect from Lian, we do of course have a load of cases on offer as well. This is the Lancool 217, and as you can see, this case has wood. This is definitely a trend that we're seeing throughout the show, actually. I think some people are sort of doing this more than others, because how do you integrate wood into a case? Obviously, if you do too much, then it becomes more expensive, more easy to damage, things like that. But then if you don't put enough on it, it kind of just looks like, oh, well, they've put a bit of wood on the case to try and match what everyone else is doing. But that's the 217 anyway. This actually should come in at a relatively affordable price, and you've got these large fans on the front. I think they're 170s, which confused me, because I haven't really heard of a 170 fan before, but there we go. We also have this one, which is the Lancool 207. And slight sidebar, can someone explain to me in the comment section below how they can get a PC to work with a cable plugged in and it keeps spinning around without the cable like wrapping around? I don't get that. I'm not an engineer. It's probably a simple solution. We'd love to know. But this is the Lancool 207, and this is definitely up my alley as well, because it's trying to be more like micro ATX in size, but then still support all of your hardware. And the way that it does this actually is to move the power supply slightly. So you now got this at the front, which means you can move that motherboard tray down and still have room for radiators and things at the top. And the fans that you get at the bottom are actually very interesting as well, because they are recessed. So at first glance, it kind of looks like a more normal chassis, but on second, you kind of realize that they've had to do all these subtle tweaks to actually make this work. This is their new M-ATX case, actually, that we've got in the studio. I haven't built on it just yet, but as you can see, we've got this lovely wood finish on the front. This one is a plastic, so you've got a couple of different like color variations. I quite like the all-white one, actually, especially if you're doing like an all-white build. It's going to be quite clean. I think the wood works better on this actually than the Lancool. I think if you're going to do it, you need enough on like the front panel to really make it work and to exist for a reason, right? This is surprisingly compact, actually, and again, full like M-ATX and what is usually like IHas in size. So it's nice to see that you can get smaller cases without having to compromise on features. And then if we come around to the other side, got some awards for this one, Best of Computex. They've actually updated their vision range, and the way that they've done this, again, is to make it compact. I realise that is definitely the trend at the Lian booth. The vision's an interesting one, actually, because the main difference between that and then some of the others in the range is that you get this glass on the top. And you guys loved this last year. It was our most popular video from Computex when we were talking about this, actually. And they say that it doesn't really impact cooling too much as long as you're populating the other slots. So you can actually fit two 120s at the back, so you can shut that air out the back that way, rather than resorting it to being at the top. So I would highly advise that if you do go for one of these, you do kit it out with a load of fans. Obviously you've got the bottom ventilation, but otherwise it's not like a crazy difference versus the normal O11 Vision, other than that it's slightly cheaper, nothing crazy, like $20–30 or so. But again, I think that the Vision was potentially too big for a lot of people, especially if you do want to have it on your desk. So going for a compact version is obviously going to be great. And one of the other subtle changes that they've actually made here is by having like a cable grommet at the top that you can route your all-in-one radiator pipes through for a cleaner finish, or obviously you can go all out like they have here with this custom water-cooled system. So yes, you can definitely fit a lot of hardware inside here, and I love, as someone that prefers smaller rigs, that they're focusing on compacting things down a little bit while still obviously offering you larger choices if that's the way that you want to go. Down here at the Noctua booth, we've also got something very, very interesting, because AIOs are something that they don't do. And one of the problems, really, or one of the big problems with AIOs is that they don't really last. I mean, okay, warranties and stuff are great, but I've got numerous PCs that I've had built up for like 7, 8, 10 years, and you'd be surprised that the pumps do start to go. People don't realize the whole system starts to fail. So what Noctua want to do is essentially remove the pump from the equation, and they're doing this with what they're calling a thermosiphon. So there's not actually any pump in this. You've not got like moving parts other than water that turns into vapor, goes into the radiator at the top, and then falls back down. Now, there are a couple of compromises with this. It is obviously still a prototype, so it's going to be a few years before this actually comes out. It may well be at the upper end of the price bracket. They're saying it's going to be at about the cost of an AIO, but don't expect it to be like one of these entry-level £90 things. This is definitely going to be charging a premium. And one of the other things is that this does rely on gravity. So at the moment, at least, it pretty much looks as if you're going to have to put it at the top of your case, which is absolutely fine for most people's chassis. But if you do go for an O11 Vision, this probably isn't going to be the one. But it's definitely fascinating, because you're not going to have all of that extra pump noise or any of those vibrations and things that actually in the more performance-orientated products can actually get quite loud. And obviously in combination with Noctua's fans, we should expect this to be among the quietest liquid cooling systems you can get without going into custom loops. So very, very exciting. And then potentially my favorite mod that I've actually seen at Computex is this one, because it's actually got water coming out of the pipe, flowing all the way down to the bottom before being recirculated. Practical? Absolutely not. There are always loads of really cool mods here. People spend literally months making these things. They can be big, they can be small. But this is the one that stands out to me because I've not really seen anything like it before. Maybe I'll get people in the comments say, oh no, this has been done there, there and there. But I don't know about you. I think that's pretty cool. And to be honest, the whole show has been pretty cool. Let me know your favorites down in the comment section below. What do you make of the show here today? What else have you seen? What have I missed? Please let us know. If you've enjoyed this video though, please smash the like button. Really, really helps out. And get yourself subscribed for more videos just like this and all of the reviews on the stuff that's covered here. But until then, we will see you in the next video.